我虽然33岁，但是如果我结婚，彩礼必须要100万。
Although I am already 33 years old, my requirements for marriage are not low. I believe that if I am going to get married, the bride price must be 1 million yuan and the other party must have a house, a car, and some assets. Some people might think my requirements are excessive, but I think I have reasons for setting them. Let me explain. First of all, marriage is completely different from dating. My requirement of a 1 million yuan bride price is actually because I am capable of offering such a dowry. I now own 3 houses and a Mercedes-Benz. These material conditions are the result of my own hard work, and I believe that marriage should be equal. Only when both parties achieve a certain balance in terms of economic and spiritual aspects can the marriage last longer. I know that in marriage, men often care about dignity and face, and at the same time, I believe that the most important factor in marriage is the alignment of values. What determines the alignment of values? I think it is firstly the economic foundation, secondly personal experience, and thirdly the influence of one's original family. These are all important factors in shaping values. Therefore, the requirements I set are actually a threshold I have established for myself. This threshold helps me filter out men whose values do not align with mine or those whose conditions are weaker than mine, and it also helps avoid encountering men with weaker conditions who may feel inferior in various aspects. Do you think what I said makes sense?
江西的男人们这回可算是扬眉吐气了啊
The men of Jiangxi have finally welcomed a moment of true pride and relief. For a long time, the issue of sky-high bride prices has been a heavy burden, weighing on their hearts. It seemed that every man getting married had to face astronomical demands for bride prices, adding immense financial pressure. However, now 14 government departments have teamed up to take action, and a thunderous campaign has begun. They have set clear limits on bride prices and linked them to the disposable income of local rural residents, strongly cracking down on the practice of extracting family wealth through exorbitant bride prices. According to the latest regulations, the upper limit for the bride price must not exceed 3 times the per capita disposable income of local rural residents. For example, with Jiangxi's rural per capita disposable income in 2023 being 21,358 yuan, this means the maximum bride price is 60,000 yuan. The introduction of this policy has dealt a heavy blow to some families of the bride who dared to demand exorbitant bride prices. If any bride's family demands more than 60,000 yuan, the groom's family can report it directly, and relevant authorities will handle the case according to the law, forcing these unreasonable demands to pay the price. The speed of implementing this policy is comparable to that of a rocket, and many cities and counties have swiftly enacted the new rules. For example, Lushan City, Fuzhou, and Jiangxi County have set the upper limit for the bride price at 60,000 yuan, while Fenyi County has set it at 69,000 yuan. Not only bride prices but also other wedding expenses are strictly limited. The number of wedding cars is not allowed to exceed 3, the number of wedding banquet tables is limited to 10, and the maximum amount for wedding gifts is capped at 200 yuan. While there may be slight differences in various regions, overall, wedding costs have been significantly reduced. A wedding, including the bride price, now costs about 100,000 yuan, which seems normal and reasonable. In contrast, in some places in the past, the bride price was absurdly high, sometimes reaching hundreds of thousands or even millions, causing many families to collapse financially. As a result, young people started to develop an aversion to marriage. The current marriage and birth rates are indeed concerning. Some statistics show that as many as 35% of men are afraid to marry because of bride price issues. Many young men are not unwilling to pay the bride price, but they cannot bear the thought that the bride's family would take the entire amount to give to parents or younger brothers, leaving the couple struggling after marriage. Particularly in Jiangxi, in some regions, the culture of bride prices has become quite unhealthy. The bride's family demands sky-high bride prices when marrying off their daughters, and these bride prices are eventually used to help marry off sons. As a result, the daughter and son-in-law's life after marriage becomes difficult and even leads to poverty. This phenomenon makes people feel like it's not marrying off a daughter, but rather selling a daughter to subsidize the son. Jiangxi's economy has long been relatively underdeveloped, with a large gap compared to neighboring provinces. More seriously, Jiangxi's economic belt seems like a black hole, which has not only drained a large number of young women but also caused a persistent gender imbalance for over 40 years. There are about 30 million more men than women, especially in rural areas, where the gender ratio is even more unbalanced. Some rural areas even have a gender ratio as high as 120 men for every 100 women, creating an absurd situation where many single men compete for a small number of women. In response to this, girls have seized the opportunity to raise bride price demands, even creating a bride price auction atmosphere, with prices soaring like in an auction. However, the introduction of the new policy has finally put an end to this disorder. With the new rules clearly setting a limit on bride prices and prohibiting unreasonable wedding expenses, the marketization of marriage is expected to fundamentally change. This also means that marriage will no longer be a transaction with a fixed price tag, and love should no longer be tainted by money.
春节过后，江西省率先提出移风易俗。
Recently, Jiangxi Province took the lead in proposing the policy of changing customs and practices, which means that the amount of dowry will be strictly limited. According to the new policy, the dowry cannot exceed more than 30,000 yuan, with the specific amount being approximately 39,000 yuan. To encourage people to comply with this regulation, the government has also promised that families adhering to it will receive certain benefits in terms of their children's education and social welfare in the future. This move has received widespread praise, and I would like to give a thumbs up to the Jiangxi government. After all, this issue should have been addressed long ago, otherwise it would have faced increasing criticism and questioning. Now, the high dowries in Jiangxi have become famous around the world, and many people are watching to see if this measure will be successfully implemented. Jiangxi has taken the first step, and this trend is likely to spread quickly to other regions across the country. The dowry problem has been a long-standing and gradually worsening social issue, much like real estate, where property prices continue to rise and people's ability to bear the costs will eventually reach its limit. Similarly, if dowries continue to increase, it will eventually become unaffordable for many, which will affect the stability of marriages and families. If one day dowries are completely abolished, two groups of people will surely be very angry. The first group consists of men and families who have already married and paid high dowries. They might think to themselves, if I had married later, I wouldn't have had to pay so much for the dowry. The second group consists of unmarried women, who may regret not marrying earlier because they could have received a sum of money as dowry. They might feel that after the dowry is abolished, they will no longer be able to receive such compensation from marriage. Of course, this statement contains some playful sarcasm. However, from a more positive perspective, implementing the changing customs and practices policy is undoubtedly an important step in reducing the economic burden on ordinary people. It can make life easier for ordinary citizens and prevent marriage from becoming the trigger for economic collapse. For young people, lowering the cost of marriage will not only reduce their financial pressure, but also increase their willingness to marry and have children. This, in turn, could help reverse the ongoing downward trend in the country's birth rate. This is a good sign for the overall development of society. Therefore, I hope that everyone, regardless of gender, can trust and understand love and relationships more. Here, I also want to send a warning to those women who rely on high dowries to get rich. Your good days may be coming to an end. Just like a grasshopper after autumn, you won't be able to jump much longer and will eventually be eliminated by the times.
江西彩礼高，央视都点名了，文主那个本事嘛。
The phenomenon of sky-high bride prices in Jiangxi has attracted widespread attention, even being mentioned by CCTV. This is actually directly related to the deeply ingrained gender bias of preferring boys over girls. Looking back at the family planning period in the 1990s, many families were extremely excited when they had a son, celebrating with drums, firecrackers, and great joy, while daughters were often neglected or, in some cases, abandoned or hidden. What consequences did this mindset lead to? Ultimately, these parents have brought this upon themselves. Now, people are beginning to realize the seriousness of gender bias, aren't they? The past mentality of preferring boys over girls has led to today's disastrous outcome. Many families were fixated on having sons, but now with a surplus of men and a shortage of women, young men are unable to find wives and are forced to, by marriages with exorbitant bride prices. What is the result? The prices keep rising, from several tens of thousands to as much as several 100,000 yuan, even reaching 388,000 yuan or 488,000 yuan. How did this vicious cycle come about? The families that once abandoned daughters are now facing the dilemma that their sons cannot find wives. Now, the pampering of sons in families has reached extreme levels. Not only are sons treated like ancestors and doted on, but families also need to pamper the brides they paid large sums for to make sure they are completely satisfied. If the bride is unhappy and leaves, the family is left with the child and must continue to support the grandson. This cycle seems like an endless pit. In the face of this situation, one can only sigh, you reap what you sow. Although these words may sound harsh, they are the stark reality. Looking back at the daughters who were abandoned in the 1990s, their survival environment was incredibly difficult. They endured hardships and grew up, only to now receive their reward. Because of the scarcity of female resources, these women have finally turned the tide and become the ones treated like ancestors. Not only must they be pampered, but if they ask for a divorce, the family faces even greater pressure.
江西彩礼为什么这么高？还不是因为你们男人。
The reason why the bride price is so high in Jiangxi is ultimately because of men. For a long time, under the influence of a patriarchal society, men in such a society seem to be assigned a higher status, and the primary task of women in giving birth is to bear sons. Many people believe that only by having a son can one fulfill the responsibility of passing on the family name and gain face, or even obtain recognition from the family and society. In our Jiangxi, indeed, there are more men than women. If you look up the relevant data, you'll find this phenomenon almost everywhere in rural areas. The scarcity of women directly leads to the rise in bride prices. Do you know why? In this context, women become especially valuable. The rarer something is, the more expensive it becomes. In our village, almost every family has to have a son. If you ask me why my parents had me, to be honest, my existence is mainly for my younger brother. This is because in our village tradition, having a son is essential. Many families have to give birth to 5, 6, or even 7 daughters before they finally get a son. This son, to the family, becomes almost the sole focus of their efforts. All the relatives and friends watch over the son, hoping that he will find a wife and settle down. So, when you ask why bride prices are so high in our area, I would say, it's all your fault, men. As for why the bride price is so high, it's not difficult to understand. For many families, paying a sky-high bride price for their son is actually a willing contribution. In their view, the fact that their son finally found a wife makes the high bride price acceptable. After all, having a wife for the son is a reward for the family and the son, and everyone hopes their son will be happy. If the bride price is a bit higher, it can even be seen as a gesture of good intentions towards the son. As for the woman's family, the reason they ask for such a high bride price is also based on the consideration that they may have younger brothers or male relatives who will also need to marry in the future. The bride price becomes a way of wealth recycling. The parents of the woman hope that the bride price earned from marrying off their daughter can help their sons or other male family members get married and have children. Therefore, behind the bride price, there is actually a wealth transfer process between men, and in this process, women seem to become the vessel of funds. Ultimately, all the money flows back to men to help them fulfill their responsibility of marriage and procreation. So, when it comes to the bride price, I think, what does it have to do with us women? It's all the fault of you men.
Regarding the issue of bride price, my personal view is that it is actually a phenomenon where poor people make things difficult for each other. In real life, if poor people ask rich people for a bride price, they often feel embarrassed and may even hesitate to ask because they worry that others will look down on them. But in reality, the bride price is most commonly demanded in families with less financial means. Many people mistakenly believe that the bride price is a form of protection for the daughter, thinking that it can guarantee her future life. However, I think this idea is somewhat one-sided. True protection should come from parents cultivating their daughter's abilities and improving the economic situation of the woman's family. This is the real way to secure a better future for the daughter, not relying on an intangible bride price. When you go to the man's family to ask for a bride price, what exactly are you securing? Are you securing a good life? Are you securing loyalty in the marriage? Are you ensuring that you will be a virtuous and wise wife? Can the bride price guarantee any of this? It cannot. Once the man gives you the bride price, your security is assured. But what about the man's security? Who provides that? Therefore, people who demand excessive bride prices are being unreasonable. If you truly like the guy, you should avoid asking about the bride price. The bride price is a reflection of the man's attitude toward you. If the man's family is well off, they can offer more. If the family is struggling, they will give less. The amount of the bride price should be based on the actual circumstances of both families, not serve as a standard to measure the relationship itself. The key is that both people's feelings align with each other. As a result, demands for excessively high bride prices are often not purely about marriage. There might be other motives behind them, and it's likely that they are thinking about divorce from the start. Do you agree with my point of view? Feel free to leave your comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Your support is very important to us, and we will continue to provide you with better content. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.